Good afternoon, 49er faithful. Happy Friday. We are in the midst of a two-game road trip for the San Francisco 49ers, just coming off of the victory against the Carolina Panthers, staying on the East Coast at the Greenbrier Resort. The photos coming out of that place, just gorgeous this week, taking on the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Yours truly, your host of the Hammerheads show, will be there. I'm Rob Schuh, your host. As always on Fridays, my co-host, Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, joining me today. Jack, are you excited for this upcoming Falcons matchup, my friend?
I'm looking forward to it. I get excited for every game. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. So I'm ready to go, though. I'm looking forward to this matchup on Sunday. I think it's a little bit more intriguing than a lot of people seem to think it is.
I think so, too. It is. I tell you, it could be a close one. Atlanta has been playing tough throughout this season so far. We will talk about that. The 49ers are absolutely dinged up. It would be unfair to not mention that fact. A lot of starters out there on defense. We'll certainly talk about that, but we will kick off with the injury update. It feels like this is now a regular segment. I guess it's a regular segment for Kyle Shanahan on a weekly basis, so it needs to be a weekly segment for us, but it carries a bit of weight because of the number of players that are on that injury report. Do you have a sense of those players that were injured recently that may not be a full go on Sunday? Do you get a sense of, say, a Nick Bosa? I know Samson Ebukam showed up on the practice report this week, but it would seem like he'd be likely to play. And then Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw already listed as out, if I'm correct there.
Yeah, they're already listed as out. The only ones that are questionable coming into this game are Nick Bosa, Aaron Banks, and Tyler Kroft. It seems like Banks is going to be out there, and haven't really heard a whole lot about Kroft. Bosa is kind of the big one that everybody's looking at is, should Bosa play? Should he not play? That kind of thing. And so that makes for an interesting discussion because I think that if Bosa is healthy, he should play.
I tend to agree that if you're ready to go, you got to play. And at the same time, there's in the back of my mind, there's that voice that says, man, they're on turf. One more week. What is your sense, Jack, of the true difference between turf and playing on a grass field? Is it really that level of difference? If you were recovering from a muscle pull yourself, would you be more cautious going on a turf surface?
I think so. I think you'd have to be, you'd have to be a little more cautious going towards. Listen, look at what's happened to the 49ers on turf the last couple of times they played on it. Against Carolina, a number of guys, Samson Ebukam with the Achilles getting a little tight. Same thing with Aaron Banks. That's why he's on the injury report, was because of playing on the turf. At least that's what they blamed it on. The 49ers are different in that they practice on grass. So everything they do is on grass. So the only time they're on turf is when they're on the road playing against a team that has it. So it can be a little bit of a challenge. The thing with Bosa is if he's healthy and you don't believe that he's at any more of a risk of injuring himself than he would be was a week ago, I believe you play him.
I do too. And Bosa is going to want to be out there as well, right? He's headed towards his big payday, and every sack that he accrues this season is going to ensure that he gets paid that much more. So my assumption would be that he's looking to be out there just as much as possible, racking up those sacks, getting those statistics.
Yeah, well, he's going to want to be out there. And so, again, it's between Bosa and the 49ers training staff. If they feel, Bosa's probably going to want to go, but I should actually roll that back because I know that a lot of times you hear players want to play, but Bosa seems to be a guy who's really in tune with his body. So if Bosa feels like he can go and the training staff feels like he can go, you let him go. And this is a big game. This game on Sunday is actually bigger for the 49ers than the game that everybody keeps pointing to next week against Kansas City.
Because they're expected to win this one?
No, because when you get into the playoff seeding or making the playoffs, the tiebreakers are your division and then your conference records. So beating Atlanta is much more important. If you're 4-3 after next week, it doesn't matter if you got there because you lost to the Chiefs, but it matters more if that's because you lost to the Falcons.
That's a great point. With these 17-game seasons, those tiebreakers become that much more important. They're going to be more log jams there of teams right there at the fringe of the playoffs or competing for seeding. And to your point, losing versus the Chiefs or losing versus Atlanta has distinctly different tiebreaker effects for the 49ers, the NFC being the more important of the two. I want to get to a couple of the comments. Appreciate all of those that come in early. The Stivers Niners 209 show is getting a little trash talk on Marcus Mariota. I won't put that one up there, but Spy Nick Danger coming in to say, hit the like button. Raphael 562 Niners. What's up, Rob, Jack, Sneakerheads, and everyone. Michael Martinez, as long as we play disciplined, I know we can beat them easily. Go Niners. That is a big if. Alan Eliza, Sneakerhead here on the channel, says Rob, Schuh, Jackhammer, Sneakerheads, and everyone, happy Friday. 2 days until game day. Any news on Bosa? Kittle and Debo, that like button for the best dynamic duo. We are a dynamic duo, Jack. We did just talk about Bosa, expecting him to go if he feels up to it and the training staff okays him. Gold-blooded. What up, Rob, Jack, and Faithful? Friday. Let's go, Niners. Oh, Rob, jinx where it is on, my friend. Did you hear about the whiteout yet? I keep hearing about this, Jack. Have you heard mention of 49er fans wearing white to this game? Is that a real thing?
I don't know. I mean, it might make sense. The only reason it would make sense to me is because Atlanta's going with their throwback. 2 reasons. Atlanta's going with their throwback uniform, so they're going to have the red helmets. The other thing is that in Atlanta, most of the seats in Atlanta are red. So in order to show up, I saw a suggestion that 49er fans wear white. So I don't know. I don't pay close enough attention to this. So if it's a whiteout or a red out, I'm not sure what it is this week. We know that 49er fans are going to be there to be loud, though.
Yes, we will. I'm bringing the white jersey just in case. I do have an oversized 85 George Kittle white jersey. I'll throw it on over top of a sweatshirt and I'll look like a kid in his dad's jersey. It will be great. Raphael 562 Niners coming in to say happy Friday. Walker Utter in the building. Scott Hill, Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in to say what's up. We've got Apache Bob in the house. Chris Royal with the super chat says, love the new office, Jack. Get it, gents. Yes, the outdoor view is spectacular. The people have spoken. We got Chrissy 1687 in the building and Jocelyn the Bay 415. Jocelyn the Bay 415. Appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate you, Chris Royal. All right, let's finish up on this injury topic here, Jack. What of these injuries that linger? Clearly, Jimmy Ward having broken his hand. We don't know if he's going to try and give it a go with the cast on once he does have that surgery and finds out if he can. And then the other obviously being Emmanuel Moseley. Do either of those injuries concern you for the long-term viability of this team and what they might be able to do this season?
Of those two, I think the Moseley injury is the one that should worry people more, just because we've seen the Friars do a pretty good job on defense without Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward's only played 1 snap of defense all year long, and they have the #1 defense in the league. So, Emmanuel Moseley's been out there though since day one. That one's a much tougher loss than Jimmy Ward. Not taking anything away from Jimmy Ward. He's a heck of a safety.
Certainly not.
They've been able to hold their own without him.
Right. He's been out to this point. So you already know what it looks like without Jimmy Ward. We don't know just yet what it's going to look like without E-Man out there. Do you believe having Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward at the other position does make it easier for the 49ers in their ability to leave him on an island and schematically shift the defense toward the other side if they don't get great play from whoever does step in, whether that's Diamador Lenore, Samuel Womack, Ambry Thomas, or Dante Johnson?
Yeah, I think it does. It's similar to where they were a year ago, right? When they had all those injuries. I would say it's more similar towards where they were at the second half of last year after Emmanuel Moseley came back from his injury, and then they were able to play Ambry Thomas away across from him.
Right.
I kind of feel like that's where they are right now. So feel pretty good about the depth that they have. They also have Samuel Womack too, who started some games for him at the beginning of the year in the slot. So
and looked good doing it.
Yeah, and he's more of an outside corner, and that's what John Lynch had said after the draft. That's where they expected him to play. Yeah,
absolutely. Are you surprised? So the defense is down significant number of starters. Obviously, you already mentioned it. Jimmy Ward has been out the whole season, but now you add to the list, you have Armstead, Kinlaw, E-Man, Aziz, and Jimmy. 5 of the 11 penciled in original starters are down, and you're looking at the #1 defense in the league. When you look at even this defense on paper, by taking those 5 names out of it, are you surprised how good that roster remains, even looking at the injuries?
I'm surprised that they're still #1 in the league. I'm not surprised that they're playing well, just because this was a team that I thought was extremely deep coming in, and there were other people that do this. Not content creators, but guys who are working for major companies and organizations NBC and all that kind of stuff, and ESPN, who ranked the 49ers as the best roster in the NFL minus the quarterback prior to the season starting. So
I am with you on that one. All right, let's get away from the injuries, and hopefully the 49ers can do the same this week and talk specifically about the matchup here, looking at Grady Jarrett against the interior O-line. Is it fair to say that strong interior rushers are more challenging for a less mobile quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Is it fair to say that a strong interior rusher like Grady Jarrett is a more challenging opponent for a less mobile quarterback like Jimmy G?
Yeah, because that's typically that rush up the middle is what causes the most problems for quarterbacks, whether they're mobile or not. Mobile quarterbacks in general don't like things in their face. They're fine with pressure around the sides, but it's when it comes up in the middle that it gives you trouble. So that could be a problem.
What's your observation of Jimmy Garoppolo when he has pressure in his face? Are those the times where you see him less likely to step into his throws, less likely to see defenders? We have some past experience watching Jimmy come up against stiff interior competition, whether that be Fletcher Cox, the Chiefs, or in 2019 coming up against Grady Jarrett and the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking through this whole thing. Garoppolo, it seems like, has been having a hard time with balls getting batted down at the line of scrimmage. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it does seem like we've seen more passes getting knocked down. At the same time, it does seem to me like Garoppolo is moving a little bit better. He's not nobody's ever going to think that he's nimble on his feet, but he's also, for a statue, he's a little bit more agile than he was before. So this is a matchup that I think favors Grady Jarrett to an extent, but the 49ers did a pretty good job against Jarrett last year with an offensive line that isn't much, I don't think much better or, isn't much different than what they have right now.
When you look at the job that has been done on the interior O-line and rotating Daniel Brunskill in to get him some snaps, allow him to knock off some rust, what has been your opinion of the interior three, our center and our two young guards, to this point, about a quarter of the way through the season? Have you been pleased with what they've shown? And in particular, in the center with Jake Brendel last game, did you have any observations?
I thought that Brendel played fine. I think the interior of the offensive line overall has played pretty good, especially when you consider some of the things that were being said prior to the season about the offensive line. I think they should. If you were one of the folks that was thinking that this offensive line was going to be poor and it was those types of things, I think you need to be very, very happy with what you've seen so far. When I look at this group, the only question that I have is really at right guard, and it's Spencer Burford. He's been playing well. No, he's a rookie. He's doing a good job. It just seems like he's the one who kind of has the penalties or the holding, those type of things, maybe gives up a sack or gets beat on the run more than the other guys. So I'd like to see how he performs if he gets matched up against Jarrett.
Do you think there will be a debate within the front office, within the coaching staff, as to whether once Brunskill is back up to speed, whether they do reinsert him at that right guard spot, or is it fairly safe to say that he'll maintain that top backup position for the time being?
Well, it seems like they're kind of putting him through training through preseason over the last 2 weeks. He's played last week, 2 weeks ago against the Rams. He got reps at right guard. Last week against the Panthers, he got reps at right and left guard. So we could see him play this game. We could see him play left guard this week because with Banks being listed as questionable. So it's that whole thing with Brunskill. It's very interesting. I think there's a lot of moving parts with that.
It is very interesting. And obviously a guy like Grady Jarrett is going to get his to some extent. You typically do not stonewall a great defender. You try to contain them. Do you have a sense for who's going to win that matchup more frequently on Sunday? Do you believe that the 49ers will do a sufficient job in guarding against Grady Jarrett, or would you expect him to wreck the game a little bit from a defensive standpoint?
I don't think he'll be a game wrecker. He's very good, but at the same time, he was very good last year, and the 49ers didn't really have a whole lot of trouble moving the ball against this Atlanta offense. They picked up almost 400 yards of total offense last year. At Levi Stadium against Atlanta, and Grady Jarrett was on the field. They ran the ball for 162 yards. Garoppolo is 18 of 24 for 235. I think they have a plan to get around him.
I would be thrilled with an efficient game like that one. And that feels like the recipe for success in this one. Efficiency, making sure that we get the run game going, and containing defensive all-stars, much like Grady Jarrett. It occurred to me, Jack, as we're watching this defense and just how special it's been to this point, and the injuries that we've suffered, it gives us a glimpse into some of the, depth issues we may see when we don't have some of these players signed going forward. When you look at this defensive line specifically, and you begin to think to yourself, who do we have signed going beyond this season, and which linemen should we be looking at now for an extension? Do you have a short list of Niners D linemen who you would like to see them re-sign going forward into the future?
I'd have to go through. I don't know about the deals beyond this year, but what I'll say is their top 4 guys are all coming back. Javon Kinlaw, if he's healthy, Eric Armstead. The top 3 of the top 4, and Nick Bosa will be back.
Right.
Samson Ebukam is not under contract, so right now they have that, and then they also went out. Remember, they used one of their draft picks on a player from Central Florida. I'm blanking on his name right now, so I apologize on that.
No, I know exactly who you're talking about in the 6th round, but it's not coming to me either.
It was Kalia Davis.
Yes, Kalia Davis, good pull.
Yeah, so looking through where they have. Charles Omenahu, I think if you're looking for somebody that you want to see resigned, I think Charles Omenahu might need to be resigned after this year. I think he's entering the last year of his contract.
Yeah, the two that are top of my mind are Omenahu and Samson Ebukam. Those are the two that feel like there should be debate about whether we want to bring them back. And honestly, if possible, I'd probably want to bring both of them back.
Well, I think the thing though to think about there is that they used their top draft pick last year on Drake Jackson. He's an end. So he would be the guy that would kind of replace Samson Ebukam if Ebukam moves on. So I think Kevin Givens, Kalia Davis is already re-signed, but Kevin Givens and Charles Omenahu would probably be your top 2 targets. And Ebukam, obviously, you'd want to try to bring him back if you can get him back on a team-friendly deal.
Right. If you're looking at a guy like Charles Omenahu, who to this point has a significant number of pressures, second only to Nick Bosa, but hasn't necessarily started to rack up the sacks yet. If you're in the front office, are you having conversations where you're attempting to get an extension done right now and save yourself a few dollars?
Yeah, that's the best thing, right? Is for if you can get it done earlier. That's why a lot of these deals don't get done, those because the player wants to keep going because they're betting on themselves. But if you can get a deal done today with and to bring back Givens and Omenahu, both those guys, really, I would go out and do that as fast as possible, because I think what I like about Omenahu is his ability to play inside and outside.
Yes, the flexibility.
A little bit more flexibility. They're kind of trying to do the same thing with Drake Jackson a little bit, where they line him up inside to get him reps next to Nick Bosa and those types of things. But I think he's primarily going to be an outside rusher when he gets into the playing on a more every down basis.
When you look at this, came out today, and this was a report that, hey, Brian Burns is available from Carolina. The report comes out today that he's a near lock to be traded before the deadline. He is on his 4th year of his rookie deal. It's somewhere around $5 million this year, and then they have signed him to his 5th year option, which is somewhere around $16 million. So whether it's looking at it from a short-term rental standpoint, and you say to yourself, he's cost controlled for this season and next, or you're looking at it as, hey, we're going to extend Bosa and then we're trading and we're going to try and do a massive extension for yet another guy. Do you see either one of those as a really realistic path forward for the 49ers? What if you're giving the odds on this, where are you placing this? Is it even money that the Niners get involved in the Brian Burns sweepstakes?
Well, I can guarantee you they're going to get involved, or at least if you ask them when it's all said and done, they're going to tell you that they were involved.
Right. We kicked the tires. We made some calls.
Yes, they always checked on it. But I think the likelihood that they actually get involved with this is somewhere close to what the lady told the guy in Dumb and Dumber. I mean, I think the likelihood, the possibility of this is 0.00009%. 0.01.
Everyone that just heard that is saying to themselves, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Thank you for getting the reference. Yeah. And the reason is the 49ers only have about $5.5 million in salary cap space right now. So just getting Burns onto the team right now is a stretch in terms of the salary cap space. And then my other question, and because I've seen this getting kicked around, is what are you giving up? Who are you giving up to get him? Because it's you can't make a trade where you say I'm going to give you a peanut and you're going to give me $1 million. It just doesn't work.
You can try, but the odds of getting that deal done are pretty slim.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. That's why when we do these trade scenarios, it's always a little bit hard for me because I'm not the best at saying, well, I'm going to give you this guy for this guy, because a lot of the times what I hear are things that just aren't really realistic.
That's right. And when you look at just doing it for draft picks, the Niners are without a first round pick next year. They do have a couple of extra third rounders, but I don't think third rounders are what's going to get this deal done. My anticipation for a guy of Brian Burns' caliber would be a first round pick, multiple seconds. And I just don't know that the 49ers have the draft capital to do that right now. Looking at a couple of other players that will be up for extensions, I just wanted to ask you about the linebacker position. When you consider that both Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair are going to be up for a contract at the end of the year, both will be free agents. Does this feel like a scenario, because both have some injury history, because both are quality players at the same position? Is this a scenario where you actually wouldn't attempt to get a deal done first and you'd let the season play out to really determine which of the two is the better fit and which of the two is your priority to re-sign going forward? Is that a fair statement? Or would you also look to get extensions done, if possible, early on with one of those two players?
I think if you're looking at that one, you're trying to get something done. Here's the deal real quick, just so you know. Drake Greenlaw is signed for 49ers with the 49ers through 2024. So he's not on the final year of his deal. So he already did an extension.
That's right. That's right. Key call earlier out there, Jack.
Yeah, he didn't. When you brought that one up, when you threw that name out there, I had to look it up really quick. So they extended him already. He's already a member of the team through 2024. But I can see Al-Shaair being another guy that they want to keep, because you don't play three linebackers a lot, but if you can have three solid guys, if they can bring Al-Shaair back on a contract similar to where he is right now, then you obviously want to do that, because they can probably absorb that contract and make it work.
And they really did get that Greenlaw contract done early, which did get it locked in at a reasonable cost for the organization. When you look at cornerback, quick question here, and then we're on to the next topic. Do you think the injury to E-Man almost guarantees that he'll be back on a one-year deal with the 49ers? Isn't that the most common circumstance when a player is injured with the team he's been with for some time, that it's often that organization that gives him the one-year deal, allowing him to try and revive his career?
And that's the thing, is because he's injured, I think there's a higher possibility. If you'd asked me this question a week ago, I would have said, I don't think so. But because he was injured, he's not going to, I don't think he's going to find the free agency market to be what it would have been otherwise. So that's where, I tweeted this out after the game. Like, that injury is a tough one. You never like to see any player get injured, but especially it's a tough one for Emmanuel Moseley, just because he was in a contract year. He was playing at a very high level. He was looking at making a ton of money next year, I think. And now you're coming back, and teams aren't going to give you a bunch of money, coming off of an ACL tear.
They're not.
And, and there's a possibility, if you look at what's happening with Jason Verrett, that he's not even ready to play until the middle of next season. So maybe that changes the 49ers approach a little bit, and they're able to get him back for one more year, one more run at it, instead of moving on quite as early to Samuel Womack like I thought they might.
Hey, I'll take it. If it's a positive for the team, if it's a positive for E-Man in his ability to regain his footing and earn himself that next contract, which he so absolutely deserves, I will take that good fortune coming out of a bad turn. When we look at going back to the game, in talking about advantages or keys to the 49ers' success here, looking at stopping the run, 49ers defense against the Falcons offense. Clearly, this has been a strength for Atlanta so far to this point in the season, but both teams are hobbled in this one. There's the big loss of Cordarrelle Patterson for Atlanta, who was having a very efficient season to this point. David Lombardi of the Athletic pointing out that he was leading the league in DVOA for running backs, but he's going to be out. And then obviously for the 49ers, the two missing interior pieces in Kinlaw and Armstead. Which of these two do you believe to be the bigger loss for which squad? Do you think that the Falcons are suffering worse having Cordarrelle Patterson out there, or are the Niners hurting more with the interior of their line struggling with depth?
No, that's a really good question, one that I wasn't prepared to answer, because I think that's really good. Why? Just because I think that's a really good one, because here's the thing. The Falcons, even without Patterson, they ran the ball 31 times last week against Tampa Bay for over 150 yards.
That's a legit day running the ball, man.
Right. And that's with, they had four different guys carry it. I don't have them in front of me right now, but they had four different guys get to that number. But, I don't know if they necessarily might not have like the explosiveness that they had with Cordarrelle Patterson, that they had with that they had with him. I'm sorry, without him.
Right.
I'm all over the board. That was awful. But
it's Friday, Jack. That's what happens on Fridays.
It is Friday. I mean, he was averaging, Patterson was averaging 5.9 yards per attempt. They brought in Tyler Algier, the rookie. I think he's a rookie out of BYU. He's at 4.7. You got Mariota at 4.2. Caleb Huntley, 4.9. And then you got Avery Williams, who's at 6.9 right now. And so you know that Atlanta wants to run the ball. I think that if we look at this overall matchup, I think this matchup favors. There's going to be I shouldn't say favors, but it's going to be a really tough one for the 49ers.
So we're hearing it here. This is also a concern for me, because I've got to admit, I've been surprised by how efficient the 49ers have been at stopping the run to this point. It feels a little bit to me that it's having to do with the way in which some of these games have shaped out, and that's played to the benefit in the 49ers being able to stop the run. This feels like a legitimate test coming up. The 49ers have had some high snap counts. They're now in the second game of a 2-game road stand. So I always go to that idea of, is that going to catch up to the defense? Are they going to be exhausted? They now have fewer players on the interior. Clearly, the depth they have at edge and the flexibility in some of those players being able to slide inside is of great benefit. Kerry Hyder, Charles Omenahu, a lot of players with versatility. It will be a tough matchup in my book as well. If you're trying to predict who comes out with the edge in this one, do you think that the 49ers are going to be able to hold the Falcons to 4 yards or less per carry and thus have a relatively successful day when it comes to stopping the run?
Okay, yeah. Well, they might be successful, but here's what I'm going to say to that. The 49ers have lost 2 games against teams that were committed to running the ball. The Bears ran 37 times against the 49ers. Denver ran the ball 31 times. If you look at the 2 games the 49ers have lost this season, those two games, their opponents combined for 68 carries. In their 3 wins, the opponents have combined for 51. So the 49ers stopped the run very well against both Chicago and Denver, but they were committed to it and they kept going back to it. Partly the reason they lost those games also was the offense wasn't putting points on the board. But I guess where I'm going with this is Atlanta is going to run the ball 30 times. I think that's their goal. They're going to keep running the ball at you. They were down 21-0 last week and they still finished with 31 carries. So they're going to keep running the ball. If they get to 30 carries, this game's going to be close. I don't know if Atlanta wins. It's going to be a lot closer than people think.
You're making me nervous, Jack, because if we lose this one, there's going to be talk of streaks. There's going to be talk of curses. It is not going to be pretty. People on my own channel are turning on me. I can't be at another loss here, Jack. I can't do it. So I'm going to need you to send the 49ers some notes on how they're going to get around that fact and make sure that they win it. Luke Walsh, I just like the creativity. It's not just a hit the like button comment. It's Ronnie Lott, smash that like button. If you're listed as out or doubtful, merely press or click the like button. Luke, appreciate that, my good friend. Good time to say, hey, we're halfway through the show. Down in the description of the video, you can find all the links to follow Jack on YouTube, to get the link to the Press Democrat, where he has fantastic content coming out on the regular. All of those links down in the description of the video. On your way there, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification on YouTube. We've got a sneakerhead comment coming in. Jason Lewis, sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, Kinlaw hasn't practiced in a few weeks. No real update that I've seen. Any idea if they shut him down for some time? My gut here, Jack, says if you were going to shut him down for a length of time that was 4 weeks or greater, you probably would have thrown him on IR to begin with. But the 49ers have already used several of those IR spots. You have a limited number of players you can bring back from IR. Do you get a sense of where Kinlaw is? Is there a sense of disappointment in the organization? Is there a sense of how serious it might be?
The sense that I get is that he's dealing with some stuff. I think I read something yesterday, might have been this morning, where it was, he feels a little bit better. He's not playing, but he feels better than what it seems like in terms of him not playing right now. So I'm not really sure. I haven't talked to him. I haven't been in the locker room since last week because they've been out in West Virginia and I'm here in California. But my overall sense of it is that you're on the right track. If they thought he wasn't going to be able to go at some point soon, they would have put him on IR already.
That's what I would think as well. Sean 9519ers, sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in to say Kinlaw potentially being saved for KC. We did reference it earlier that if you are actually looking at the tiebreaker situation, Atlanta being the more important of the two, but certainly there are those of us in the fan base that believe, hey, the Niners might want revenge against Kansas City. And it's not out of the question that they might see Kansas City as a very important matchup from a pride and ego standpoint. All right, so we've talked about containing the run, and that will obviously be a critical component to the 49ers having success against Atlanta. And a portion of stopping the run will, in fact, be stopping Marcus Mariota. But in containing Mariota from start to finish, when you look at Marcus Mariota as a runner, Jack, just how dangerous do you believe that he is at this stage of his career?
He's still just as dangerous, I think, as he's ever been. He concerns me. I love one of your guys over here, Sean 9519ers. He's one of your sneakerheads. I love that guy. He is fired up every week that we have him in here, and he's letting me know about my take earlier. He says Bears won. Bears was a monsoon. Of course they ran. Broncos ran because the Farmers' offense was terrible, so they controlled the clock. No, and I agree. And I think the other thing, though, with those two games, one last piece, is both those teams have a mobile quarterback. It was back to Mariota being a mobile player. I don't think Mariota is a very good passer. I've watched him play since, I know he was with the Titans in 2017. I don't remember when he was a rookie, but he still moves around, but he doesn't scare me as a thrower of the football.
He's not been accurate this season. I mean, when you look at outside of Kyle Pitts and Drake London, is there really much of a pass catching threat on that Atlanta squad?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, that's the other piece that's kind of funny when you look at the Falcons, is I've heard a lot of talk about Kyle Pitts and his lack of activity, but Pitts is actually the second leading guy on their team in terms of targets. He has 22, which is second most to Drake London. So, I think part of the reason Pitts isn't getting more yards or more receptions is just because the guy who's throwing the ball. He only has 10 catches on 22. He's averaging over 15 yards a catch. But they don't really have a whole lot of anything out there because their quarterback is not the most, he's not the most accurate of QBs.
No, he really is struggling to this point in the season, and it has been an issue throughout his career, although better at times in different systems. Certainly right now seems to be an issue as far as accuracy is concerned. If you consider the 49ers being depleted along the defensive line, maybe being a little bit winded from a high snap count the last couple of weeks and being on the road, do you see any concern of the defensive line getting worn down in attempting to bottle up Mariota, in attempting to contain him within the pocket?
Yes, I could see this team. I could see the defense getting run down, containing Mariota and just dealing with the run game in general, just because, the run game is like, we said this before, and I'm probably not the first person that said it, but the run game is like body blows. Those are the yes. Punches, those are Rocky just, going at, once Apollo taught him to go for the body, that's when he became dangerous. And then he still had that knockout punch that he always had. And that's kind of what the 49ers haven't had to deal with a whole lot of body blows this year. The two times they've got a lot of body blows, they ended up, hitting the mat. So I'm nervous about their ability to to hold up against the run, because I think the pass game, they're going to be okay.
I'm nervous about this one too. Is it a bigger advantage for the 49ers? Is it a bigger concern to continue platooning those defensive linemen in and out to keep them rested? Or is it a bigger key to keep the ball on and possess the ball on offense and slowly work your way down the field, have those long sustained drives? Which one do you see as the bigger key to the 49ers success in stopping the run game and thus containing Marcus Mariota as well?
They need to make the Falcons drive down the field and make it, show that they can do 4 or 5 yards all the way down the field. If the Falcons can drive the ball down the field like that on you, you shake your hand, you shake their hand, and go to the next series, because most of the time in situations like that, the defense is eventually going to win. That's why you see the NFL be the way it is nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, you asked and you shall receive. Sean 9519ers sneakerhead here on the channel says, Jack, the Falcons offense is depleted. Mooney on London. Pitts has a hammy, won't be 100%. Patterson out. The defense will dominate ATL. Mariota is screwed. So what say you? Do you agree that this sets up for the 49ers to be heavily favored? I mean, you got done saying a moment ago, and I got done agreeing with you, that you fear this defense, that this game matchup will be tighter than this.
I like where he's going with it. But again, I think you look at this thing, and the Mariota didn't have Pitts last week. And that was the only time this season that they haven't scored over 20 points. Obviously they're playing against a Tampa Bay defense that's pretty close to the 49ers.
Very stout.
A stout defense. So I think I don't think they're going to score a bunch of points on the 49ers, but if they can maintain a ground game and chew up the clock, that puts a lot of pressure on the 49ers, because it reduces the amount of possessions that you're going to get. And that's what concerns me. And I agree with what Sean's saying, though, is that the reason that Denver was able to stay committed to the run is because the 49ers offense couldn't put points on the board.
Yes.
Right. But here's the thing. When have we seen the 49ers offense really put points on the board? They only scored 10 points in the first half last week against Carolina. So it's not like they all of a sudden had this breakout game against the Panthers. So even though the Panthers were playing without their, both their starting safeties and their leading tackler. So it's again, this I think is going to be a tight game that's going to come down to 1 or 2 key plays here or there.
I agree, but I like what Darren is cooking here. He should be talking to me on this one too, because I'm damn nervous. He says, don't be nervous, Jack. We got this. I'm the nervous one. I'm the one headed to Atlanta, fearing that I'm dragging some sort of a streak with me here. That's the fear, ladies and gentlemen. We need a win here to erase it. All right, last question around containing Mariota. When you think of our defense, the strength of it, and containing a mobile quarterback who clearly can do some damage with his legs, but probably not so much with his arm, what will DeMeco Ryans have up his sleeve with regard to a level of blitzing and aggression? Would you expect to see the 49ers leaning heavier towards the blitz packages, or playing a little bit more, hey, let's keep everything in front of us, force them to drive it down the field, and then tighten things up in the red zone?
See, that's a really good one. And that was something that came up earlier today when I was talking with Rohan, and I didn't even get to really, he was talking, his question was too long, so I wasn't able to remember what I wanted to say. But, against the Panthers, after Nick Bosa went out, you saw a lot of stunts and those kind of things. Hold on one second. I got to yell at my
every now and then you got to let the dog know. You just lay down the law.
Yeah. I don't know who let the dog out, but Baha man. What I was going to say was, when in the second half with Nick Bosa out, you saw a lot of stunts and those twists and all those kind of things from the 49ers defense to be able to generate pressure. Right. I don't think that is something you want to do a lot against the Falcons. You don't want to be, getting yourself into stunts and twists and all that kind of stuff against a team that's running the ball, because you can run yourself right out of a hole. And that's what creates gaps. And so, that's going to be definitely something to keep an eye on. But I would think that the 49ers are going to play this one a little bit closer to the vest, get down into the 25, 30, 20-yard range, if that's where it gets to, and then you clamp down, kind of like what we saw them do against the Rams.
I like that game plan. I do think that there will be fewer points of aggression. I'm sure there'll be some well-timed ones, but I think you keep everything in front of you, force Atlanta to try and beat you consistently. I don't think that they can up against this defense. I also think Sean 951 Niners is onto something with the latest comment here. Sneakerhead here on the channel saying, Rob Schuh, this game is 100% about the 49ers offense. Jimmy G and company need to progress. We must expose Atlanta in the first half for 21 to 24 points to have the second half. We can run, and kill clock. What the 49ers have not shown to this point is an ability to quickly put up those points in the first half. I just haven't seen the offense looking cohesive enough to start out. It's always some type of hey, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. Hey, a small little penalty here. A quick little fumble towards the end of a drive. We haven't been able to put up these points early, and I guess that's why I'm a little worried this one ends up closer. I agree with Sean that if we do jump out to an early lead in the first half, this game should take care of itself. We should be able to run all over them in the second. But do you believe this offense is progressing to the point where maybe we see everything clicking and we see one of those domination games?
I agree with what he's saying here, and I think you and I agreed with him too. Like when we've talked about games prior to this one, that they should have put up big points, against Chicago in week 1. They should have put up a decent amount against the Seahawks, but they had chances for more, and then they had at all their games, they've had opportunities for more points in the first half than they've been able to manage. So I'm a little nervous about it. I don't think this 49ers offense is quite. Last week doesn't tell me that the 49ers are there. This week will give us a better idea, I think.
This is going to be the test. This is going to be the one that shows us where we are. Just had to do a little bit of blocking there in the chat. Don't worry, it wasn't anyone, just one of those pesky bots that come in every now and again. I like Chrissy 1687 throwing up the puppy dog emojis on the screen. Chrissy, I'm here for it. Yes, we have a third contributor on the show today, and I think the content is far above what Jack and I could hope to put out ourselves. So we'll add that in. We'll have some short clips that are purely the puppy sounds, which probably will get higher views than what Jack and I bring down. When you look at the rest of what the 49ers need to do to win this one, man, I mean, obviously, stopping the run is critical. We touched on that. Containing Marcus Mariota, that's a part of stopping the run, but obviously containing him in its entirety, a part of the keys to victory. When you look at the rest of the reasons outside of the factors that we've already mentioned, what are your keys to victory for the 49ers as they head into Atlanta, Jack?
Well, we've talked about almost everything. We haven't talked about Jimmy Garoppolo much. I think that Garoppolo is a big one. I think you need to look at Garoppolo and you need to look at his history, and you realize, okay, he's gone 2 weeks without an interception, and his past history tells you that he's going to turn the ball over this week because he's never gone 3 weeks without throwing an interception. So that's a big one. And the second one is the running game, because the running game was not good with Jimmy Garoppolo quarterback until last week. And I think you look at that one, and from the running game standpoint, you're like I said earlier, it was good. Jeff Wilson Jr. had a really nice day, but also Carolina was without 3 of its top players. So where do you go from there? And I think that's a big question, is which Jimmy Garoppolo shows up. He needs to be consistent. He needs to show that he can do it.
He does. By the way, I want to show some respect to Bridget coming in. I believe a Falcons fan here. Y'all think this is just going to be an easy win. LOL, y'all haven't seen my Falcons play this year. Don't let the stats fool you. Believe me, Bridget, at least Jack and I are taking this very seriously. Jack has predicted it being a closer game than most would say. I also feel that way. I believe that Atlanta could be a tough matchup for the 49ers. Much like Las Vegas, I am still predicting that the 49ers win. I do still think they should be favored in this one. However, not quite as heavily as many 49er faithful believe. And I agree that a lot of this falls onto the offense. I'm confident even with the defensive injuries, I'm confident that this defense can do enough to put the 49ers in a position to win. The offense, on the other hand, I've seen some things that lead me to be optimistic about this season, and I've seen others that lead me towards concern that we could see a regression by the offense. You touched on Jimmy Garoppolo, and I just want to ask for your overall sense and what you're seeing so far, acknowledging that, hey, it's a small sample size so far this year, a handful of games. But is Jimmy slinging it a little bit better so far this season, or are you seeing basically the same Jimmy Garoppolo?
I would say it's Jimmy has pretty much been Jimmy, the same Jimmy that we've seen in the past, except for he did throw the ball downfield a little bit more last week. Early on, he took some shots that we don't normally see him just kind of, throwing the ball up down the left sideline. I think he did it 3 times. Usually we don't see him air it out like that.
Right.
But, other than that, just kind of trying to, go through it. The Rams game felt very similar to what we've seen him do against the Rams in the past. A lot of short stuff and a couple of throws over the middle that hit for big gains. Last week was a little bit more downfield. There were some screens, but there weren't as many screens out to the wide receivers. It was pushing the ball down the field a little bit more. I'm not saying he pushed the ball down the field, but, into that middle range, which was compared to the week before was down the field more. So, the thing with Garoppolo is if he can continue to just do what he's done the last 2 weeks, week after week after week, then the 49ers are going to win a lot of games.
Right.
If he's turning the ball over, that's when they're going to be in trouble. But if he just keeps playing like he's played the last 2 weeks, if he can be consistent for the first time in his career for multiple weeks, this team's going to be in a good spot.
I tend to agree because Jimmy Garoppolo has been very efficient and has looked confident. Also slinging the ball just a few more attempts down the field. His completion percentage is off, right? I mean, it's a solid 5-point drop over his career, maybe even a 7-point drop over his career completion percentage. I believe he's hovering closer to 60% right now. Do you see that as a factor of, well, he's still shaking off the rust, he didn't have himself a preseason? Can Jimmy continue to get more efficient, or will we see lower efficiency because he's attempting to push the ball down the field 1 or 2 more shots a game?
I think it might be a situation where we see a little bit less efficiency because the ball is getting pushed down the field a little bit more. That would make sense to me.
It does indeed. I mean, he's not going to hit those at the same clip. Gold-blooded disputing says, disagree, Jack. So far, I've seen a different Jimmy running for 2 big first downs. Of course, both were called back. Throwing the one-on-ones and not getting picked could change, but he's got an edge now. I think there's something to that. I do see a little bit of an edge. It's hard for me to say it's a different Jimmy. It seems more to me, a more fitting way to describe it is it's the same old Jimmy plus. Like it's the same old Jimmy with a little bit of an edge to him, a little bit of a willingness to push it outside the numbers and down the field, a little bit of an edge in running into the defense. I always thought that was there, but I am seeing a competitive fire right now that's like, hey, I'm playing with nothing to lose right now. These are my boys that I'm riding with for one last ride. I get a little bit of that sense, but I don't know that I'm seeing a huge step forward in skill.
No, I agree with kind of what you're saying. I don't think it's like a major difference, but there are some things that he's doing that again, here's the thing with that keeps me from really going in on Jimmy Garoppolo is that we've seen him do what he's done the last 2 weeks, and it's this week is kind of the week that he does good for a couple of weeks, and then he putters out in week 3, and then he kind of rubs it up again for a couple of weeks, and then he kind of putters out. So that's what I'm saying. If he can do really good this week, yeah, he'll kind of start to win me over. The efficiency piece we were talking about a second ago. So right now he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league in net yards per attempt. That's a number I talk about a lot. He's at 7.2 yards per net attempt. That's a drop. He was at 7.7 last year. I think some of that though is because he's pushing the ball down the field a little bit more, which is causing some more incompletions. And beyond that, he needs to play a little bit better, but I like I'm all over the board with this one too, because I'm with you guys. Like I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Garoppolo is he's played. I think I wasn't super like enthusiastic about the game against the Rams. I was much more enthusiastic about the performance that he put up against the Panthers. I want to see a melding of those two, and I just want to see it continue. If he does it this week against the Falcons, and he does it against the Chiefs, and he just kind of does it for a few weeks to where it becomes like consistent, then I'll be with you guys, like the ones that are like Jimmy is playing really well, because I just want to see it continue to manifest itself. And there's a lot of positives to what he's done, and it just needs to continue on a consistent basis. I talked about that last night in a piece that I wrote for the Press Democrat.
Beautiful plug on the piece for the Press Democrat. And there's a link to said piece down below in the description of the video. By the way, we had a clarification from Gold-Blooded, who was affected by character count in what he was able to put up there on the screen. He ended with, but he's got an edge now. He comes back in to say, I couldn't fit slight edge. So he was trying to dial it back a little bit as well. Just couldn't fit that in. But Darren Worthington coming in to say he's finally got that real chip on his shoulder. I agree. I think it's notable.
Yes, he's playing. This is the first time since 2017 that we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo playing without a contract for the next year. And he played. Remember what he did in 2017 when he didn't have the contract the next year? He's kind of doing that now. Yep, he's looking for the money. And here's the other thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. I know he's been in the league for a long time, but he's only, when you look at the number of games that he started, he's just barely getting into his fourth season as a starter. He's barely over wild. 3 games worth of, of regular season games, I should say. So it's not like this guy has played a ton of games to where we know pretty much who he is, but there's still, how many guys have you seen who have struggled and kind of been inconsistent throughout their careers, and then they hit 30, 31, and all of a sudden it kind of changes a little bit. Like Tommy I referenced last night with Sunil, Tommy Maddox, for example. Remember Tommy Maddox? He struggled in Cleveland, and then he got to Denver or to Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden he played pretty well. So who knows?
That's a fair point. People do continue to progress even when you already know who and what they are as a player. We got a super chat coming in from Australia. Elvis is in the building. Sneakerhead here on the channel says, "G'day, Rob and Jack. I think this game is all about Jimmy, and yes, the offense, but more, not in a bad way, but more about morale for him and for KC next week." So seeing this as a stepping stone to Kansas City, I will say, I think this could be a confidence builder for the 49ers. Watching the offense continue to click, and Jack, you were just speaking on that, will give you confidence as to what it is you're watching. I think it will also give the 49ers confidence going into KC. But I do have to harken back to what you said earlier, Jack, which is not overlooking Atlanta. My true hope is it's apparent from the jump on this one that first kickoff, whomever gets the ball on the opening drive, the 49ers are a physical team. Because if they are imprinting themselves physically on this game, I have much more faith that we are going to win it. If it feels as if they overlooked it in any way, I'm going to start to get nervous that Atlanta could smell blood and all of a sudden be back in this one, regardless of the fact that the 49ers may have the more talented roster, even with those injuries.
Yeah, this is a game. If the 49ers come out and they play the way that they're capable of playing, put points on the board and don't screw themselves up in the beginning of the game, this game could be over with before halftime. It's just a matter of
that would be nice. That would be refreshing, Jack, to be able to be tweeting about I wouldn't tweet about the curse until the end of the game. That would be a real mistake. Watch me send out a halftime tweet up 44-0 and then a comeback and a loss. No way. I'm not inviting that curse. Jaguayo 56 Sneakerhead here on the channel says, "Rob and Jack, Jimmy G just has to play clean. He's motivated for the money." I think it's less about the money for Jimmy and more about being carefree. I get a real sense that when Kyle tightens up in games, that Jimmy tightens up in games. And when Jimmy tightens up in games, he plays poorly. Now that he's playing fast and free and feeling as if, regardless of what I do, this is probably my last season in San Francisco. So it really doesn't matter if I light the world on fire or if I screw up and crash and burn. I've made $100 million in my career to this point. What do I have to lose? So my hope is that he's feeling a little bit freer, because in 2017, that was absolutely the vibe that I got. It was like, hey, Jimmy, you've only been here for a few weeks. Go out and have fun. What's the worst that can happen? Because we're already trash right now. And he went out and played fast and free. I get a little bit of a sense of that's what's helping Jimmy right now.
Yeah, I think there's some confidence to it. You listen to him talk on the radio on Tuesday, I believe it was. He was on KMBR talking about, about his situation and the relationship that he has with Kyle Shanahan. And it just kind of seems like they're in a, I don't know if it's just him talking and saying these things or if he's been coached up to say it, but if what he's saying is real, that he feels comfortable and he's kind of getting on the same page with Kyle Shanahan, that's good news, because I don't know how on the same page they've been over the course of their time together. One last point.
Doesn't seem they're on the same page. Please, Jack, please.
I want to make one final point, and I did not think of this myself. Our good pal So Real Sunil came up with this one, and he mentioned it to me in our conversation last night. This is the first time that Jimmy Garoppolo has played back-to-back seasons, multiple games. He started in 2017 at the end of the season, was hurt after the first couple games, started all 2019, was hurt early in 2020, started all of last season, did pretty good. Wasn't supposed to be the guy this year, and now he is. This is the first time in his career that he's got a chance where he's actually healthy for an extended period of time for 2 years in a row.
Are you saying it might mean something to get into a little bit of a rhythm as a quarterback?
It means a little bit. I kept hearing that about some other quarterback in the beginning of the season. So
just a little bit. All right. Lisa coming in with the super chat. Jimmy G will do amazing. Believe it. Manifest it. That's what we're doing right here, Lisa. This is it. This is the prediction that Jimmy does have the game we want him to have, that we believe it, and that we are hereby manifesting it on this channel. This channel right now is singularly focused. Jack is focused. I am focused. Everyone that's watching is focused on the fact that Jimmy G is going to crush it this Sunday. The 49ers are going to follow in his steed as he crushes it, and they will handle Atlanta. We are manifesting it right now. That is the power of manifestation, ladies and gentlemen. But we also have another super chat before we get to the prediction of that manifestation. Sean 9519er Sneakerhead here on the channel says Atlanta 108 million on the 53-man, 49ers 200 million. Better dominate. That's a distinct difference there. Raphael 5629er Sneakerhead here on the channel says Niners this season will be undefeated against bird teams. Raphael, I love that prediction. Let's take the birds down. That means the Seahawks, the Cardinals. We're going to take down the Falcons. You name it. You name it. We are going to take down the bird teams and maybe the cat teams too, because we got the Panthers already, and I don't know if we play any other cat teams. So that could be a phenomenal trend the 49ers are headed for. So let's get into that prediction about the 49ers taking down the Falcons. I think this one's going to be a lower scoring affair myself. I'm nervous about it. I know that you are, Jack. How do you have this breaking out for the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday? Do they get the win in your estimation?
I got this one coming down. It's going to be the final score of 49ers 22, Falcons 16.
22-16. That is a close one. We are very close in our prediction as far as overall points in this one and how it actually breaks out at the end. I also have the 49ers taking this one down. I have it 24-17. So I have the Niners winning by 7. You have the Niners winning by 6. Either way, a little too close for comfort, if you ask me, because I will be in the stands sweating. If we are within one score at the end of this one, Jack, I am going to be perspiring bullets, my friend, because I am going to be there. And there is the fact that, hey, I've been at a couple of losses in a row. I'm not calling it anything other than a streak at this point, but we need the streak to end. I will be there. Randon and I both going to be in Atlanta. I'm hoping Sean 9519ers is right here, and the Niners win 41-13 or some sort of lopsided score. I'll even take Peter Lee's prediction here of 27-17. Real Deal saying 26-10. We've got Raphael saying 28-17. Gold-blooded 32-12. A lot of predictions that would make me very happy, including Elvis 31-9. Well, either way, whether it's one of these predictions that we've got from George 37-10 or the predictions we made, Jack, with a 6 or a 7 point differential. We all are predicting that Niners win. So we all are projecting and trying to manifest that 49ers dub. I'm pretty excited for Sunday, man.
Absolutely. It should be a good game. I'm looking forward to it. Always, game days always are exciting. They're always busy. I hope, if it's what Elvis said, I'm going to say thank you, Elvis, because that means I can start my work post-game write-up a little bit earlier than I normally have to, because I have to wait to the end.
Absolutely love it. Well, hey, we had a couple of Atlanta Falcons fans in the chat today as well. And I want to say welcome to those. Always welcome opposing fans in the chat. Always love it when fans are respectful to one another. I wish you a great game on Sunday. I wish you the best of luck. I still am absolutely pulling for my 49ers to come out victorious. But I would hope that it's a good game, a clean game, and everyone comes out healthy. If you're here watching, regardless of whether you're a Niner or a Falcon fan, do us that favor and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Go check out in the description where you can go to Jack's YouTube channel and subscribe there. Follow him on Twitter for phenomenal updates and that phenomenal content on the Press Democrat blog as well. All those links are down below. Sean 9519ers coming in with the last super chat. 49ers 28-3 to rub in Atlanta and give Shanny revenge. Good to call out that this would take Shanahan above, if I understand it correctly, above 500 for the first time in his career with the 49ers. So it would be a revenge game against his old squad, and for the first time clawing his way above 500 as the 49ers head coach. That's certainly been a critique of him in the past.
It's been one of them. I love that one, 28-3. That's the chef's kiss, as they say.
It is, right? Still written on the side of the Superdome in New Orleans, because that's how salty they are against their rivals, the Atlanta Falcons. I just love that fact. Saltiness. I'm here for it. All the pettiness. Okay, this has been a phenomenal show. Jack, thank you so much for being with me on Fridays. As always, I can't wait to come back on your channel on Monday, where I hope we will be breaking down a win, good sir.
I hope so. And I hope I don't have to razz you about a loss.
Yes, I hope so as well. I'll be going live with Randon from the parking lot or in the stadium and the post game. Definitely getting that coverage from Atlanta. Wish me luck in breaking the streak. We are getting a dub. Let's go. I will be live over the weekend, back with Jack on his channel on Monday. And until then, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the game, and cheers, faithful.